What's going on, everybody? Chart Guys Lamont here. Lori is occupado, so you stuck with me today for the market update. In this video, we will go over the market and talk about the CPI reaction and what to look out for in the week ahead or the day. Usually I do weekly videos, so what to look out for in the future. Let's get into it, eh? All right, so starting off with SPY, obviously we had the bearish reaction to, well, technically we had an initial bullish reaction to CPI, and then when the cash market began, when the bell rang and all the operators jumped in, there was a bearish reaction, right? And so um, at the same time, you have to call it for exactly what it is, right? Was this a higher volume day? Okay, yes, it is above the 20-day average for volume. Was it the most notable selling in some while? Yes, certainly it was the most notable selling in quite some time. However, did it create any kind of damage on the daily chart? And as of right now, it has not. The daily no change level is 550.28. So the sellers need to find acceptance back under 550.28 just to negate the change that occurred from this breakout. There's a good amount of space for them to set a potential higher low buyers over 542.52. Anything over that's going to be good for that higher low. And that's really it. Like this, again, this is just one day so far. And, it looks a lot worse in the Qs, but in the SPY, it's not really that bad. Let me look for a similar situation. Here's let's see, 0.73%. These are pretty similar down days, And let's just go back to look at this situation here. Okay, well, was that notable selling? It was. Did it create damage by getting back under the area that they just broke out of, 524.61? It did not. Let me just hide this. This trade zone, by the way, which was a banger. These are shared in my weekly video, so you can check those out if you like. This is malaligned. Hold on here. Okay, so did this stay create damage? It did not. When did the damage occur? It was when they traded through this structure, right? But did they trade through the structure? They did not, right? In fact, oh wow, I didn't even know that. They came pretty much right down to the tick. It's off by 4 ticks. So in order for these sellers in this day to have created damage, they would have had to find acceptance back under this structure, which they failed to do. So as of right now, the sellers are not even yet testing the area of local demand where they have to get through in order to start, again, getting back on the offensive. They're not on the offensive right now. Buyers are on defense right now. If these buyers can continue to maintain over this daily demand zone, then they're going to continue being fine. That's pretty much it. All right. So on the Qs, looks a lot worse. That being said, did it create damage on the daily chart? No, it has not created damage on the daily chart, right? Because here is our local daily demand zone. As long as the market is making these areas of sideways, a demand zone, and then breaking out, sideways, breakout, sideways, the trend is fine. Okay, so as of right now, these sellers got to get back under 487.20 just to start creating damage on the daily chart, and they really need acceptance back under 480.97 in order to actually be positioned well to be on the offense relative to this structure. As long as 480.97 is supported, as long as 480.97 is supported, the majority of the buyers from this structure are being affirmed. Okay, so that's really it. There's much more notable volume in the QQQ than in the SPY, right? In the SPY today, we still had XLV near the highs, XLF also near the highs. So there's still rotation occurring in the market. It really was just a matter of the QQQ becoming very weak. So that's pretty much it. Moving on to the IWM here. So again, these key levels are what we're going to be looking out for in the future. If the sellers can't find acceptance under 487.20, 480.97, then they don't really create any meaningful change. Moving on to IWM here. So for IWM, this one, if you're part of our community, you've seen me making plays in IWM for a long time now, using RTY plays to roll into IWM shares, because I just didn't know if we were going to ever break out of this range. But I did want to be positioned for this reaction, this kind of a reaction, because, if the market rally is going to broaden, then you should get like a dash to trash kind of a situation. The small cap should see some love. The rut should see some love. And, they're heavily loaded with debt, right? These smaller companies have a lot more debt. And so the best case scenario for them then is to see those rate cuts in an economic environment that's not too weak, right? Like if the Fed has to cut rates to save the economy, that's bad, right? That's a red flag. Markets usually don't respond well to that. But if the economy is fine and they're just cutting rates because they can, right, then that's fine, right? So that's really it, right? There's a big difference between, the context of why the cuts will begin. I know there's like statistics out there. It's like whenever the cut comes, the market tanks for a bit. It depends on the situation. Okay. So anyway, and if you're interested in any of the plays that we're doing in here in RTY in our futures room, check out our community. Links are in the description below. I think I'll put them there if they're not. And we also, on the weekend videos, I share these setups. All three of these were shared publicly. That's this setup, and this one. This one didn't hit, but all three of these hit. So this sell was shared on this week. And then this buy, if you took this play, I suggested you chop it up here, and now you're just in a runner. You can just walk your stop up to here, So that's how we get it done. If you are interested, again, check it out, the community. So what are we looking at from here? So the goal for these buyers now is to hold over this guy. This guy has contained price throughout all of this, right? And has been the problem throughout all of this local price action as well. So the idea then is for these buyers to hold over 207.61 to have the most confidence, but they also need to get back over 211.88 in order to get back to where they left off here, essentially, right? So the goal for these buyers now is to hold over this structure, because this structure over here is what also made all of these lows. So as long as you're holding over this structure, we should expect price action like this, okay? So that is pretty much it. I would say that if you're going to bust over 211.88 from here, then I'm just going to be using this fella as a reference. Okay. So I would say then that, and the market has already affirmed the significance of this structure with a rejection off of the value area low over here, and then another rejection off of the value area low over here. Okay. So that is the first objective, is to find acceptance over the value area low 211.48, which is pretty much the same as this high over here. So the goal for the buyers then is to do this. They want to do this, right? Find some follow through over here, and then on back test, not fall back down to this structure, and then just stay up here. That's the ideal situation for buyers in the short term. For now, IWM, a lot of space for a higher low to be set. Anything over 200.53 would be good for one, and ideally they don't close the gap. If you don't close the gap, then this change is not negated. All right, so that's the best case scenario for IWM. Looking at Bitcoin, so Bitcoin, there's some good, there's some bad, right? The bad is that, well, this structure over here that's sitting at the 2021 highs, this is a key structure, right? This was a structure sitting at the prior all-time high. As long as the point of control was being affirmed as support, then that area was acting as demand. And that's what happened here, right? That's what happened here and here, right? And even here, these breaks will no follow through. And here, that's this play I shared publicly. And now, and also look at the value area low. That structure here was supportive, 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 supportive. And now look what's happened, right? Now it's starting to become resistant. So as long as we're finding acceptance under 61003.36, that means that this structure over here is acting as supply, right? And so the buyers need to come in with more volume to overwhelm the supply if they're going to have another go at the all-time high. That's a bit of a rhyme. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Daily higher low and higher high, not seeing follow through is a bit of a red flag. And where they didn't see follow through, getting stalled here, also a red flag. That being said, what is the good? The good is that the market had a pretty red day and Bitcoin didn't. So that is notable. And then also, they're still clinging on to this guy as support. So here, this change from 53,000 obviously can't be negated until they get it back under 53,000. So to miss tagging it over here was a notable failure on the seller's part. But we don't want to stop our sequencing there, right? We want to always look through a few steps for the sequencing. So even though we know that for this step, right, the fact that they failed to get back down to 53,000 was a notable failure on the seller's part, at the same time, these buyers don't create any change, meaningful change, without getting back over this low, right? Because this is the low of the most recent breakdown, right? So objective one is to get back over 58414.28 to start flipping this local supply into demand. But the real test is to come over here, right? They need to find acceptance back over 61003.36 to have confidence in this structure flipping back into demand and then resume more healthy consolidation going sideways. All right, so that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. Moving on to gold, I should have checked what Lori normally covers. I'm just going to do these, the stuff that we typically cover on the streams. And then I guess we can check out like NVDA, I guess. Okay, so gold, very healthy consolidation, just hanging out, trading sideways, had a really solid day while the market tanked. The dollar is probably tanked. Okay, so that makes sense. But what are we looking at now for here? So we're watching this key daily demand zone. All right, this guy over here has been supported price here, has supported price here, no acceptance under its value area low, means that this structure never really had a lot of confidence in this guy flipping into supply, so it's still acting as demand. And now this change, it took them a long time. All of this price action was an attempt to negate the change that the sellers created here. The buyers were trying to negate this change by finding acceptance back over 2408.5, which they finally have started to do so today. So again, gold, very healthy consolidation. You cannot love this little higher high here with no follow through, but at the same time, again, thinking through to the next steps. Okay, higher high here is a notable failure on the buyers, but they also have to trade through this guy and close this space in order to negate this change. So as of yet, buyers are very confident. Daily trend is bullish, higher lows and higher highs. New higher low support is at 2356. Anything over 2356 is going to be good for another daily higher low. Okay, oil, this is very notable here. So oil, this is the big old area of supply that we've been watching for a very long time. The market has affirmed the significance of this supply from these rejections over here at the value area low, right here and here and here and here, and then flipping into support over here, right? Brings us back to the POC, but they can't hold it. Another battle for the value area low over here. You can see how it's problematic over here as well, right? Supported over here. Okay, so basically this big area of supply has been containing price for quite some time. And so the way that I see it is, all right, well, we have the big supplies POC over here, 88.37. The buyer should be trying to go for that as long as they're holding over 80.93. And as of right now, you have this local daily demand zone that's pretty much acting as a proxy for this big value area low. So we can say, as long as these sellers don't trade through this proxy, this local daily demand, then they're not going to find acceptance under the value area low of the big supply. If they're not going to find acceptance under the value area low of the big supply, then they're going to try to come up here, 88.37. But in order for them to do that, they're going to have to trade through this local supply first. Make sense, right? You see how everything kind of comes together like that, right? And so as of right now, this is the problem, right? This is the problem in the buyer's way. And so they'll have to overcome this little local supply in order to have a go at that major point of control, the 88.37. And so the next key level is 88.38. All right. Moving on to net gas, netty gas. Daily trend is bearish, lower highs and lower lows. I'm just watching these guys. I'm watching this guy. I'm watching this guy, right? Because this guy obviously significance affirmed here, significance affirmed here, significance affirmed here. And this fella has not yet been tested, but it's the demand zone that led to this big old round. So I would not be surprised if we were to see some balance under this guy and over this guy and just continue to chop around for some time. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, especially considering that a lot of this move has already been retraced. So the goal for the sellers, the next goal for the sellers, I should say, is to get back under 2.1530. That is their next objective. And then really what they want to do is flip 18245 back into resistance, which would then affirm this structure no longer acting as demand, and it would affirm it as supply. And then we'd just be looking for backdoor breakdown, or almost backdoor breakdown. All right. The dollar. So the dollar, I'm watching this structure and this structure. These two structures have contained price for the dollar ever since December of 2022. There is no meaningful change on the dollar without either acceptance over this supply or acceptance under this demand. And we just had another rejection from this supply and then another rejection from this local supply. So now what we're looking out for is, okay, well, what happens on the test of this area of demand and this area of demand that were built on the way up and that have not yet been traded through? That's the goal for the sellers right now. Trade through this area of demand, trade through this area of demand, and then trade through this area of demand, and obviously try to go to zero, right? Like that's always the goal for the sellers. We can always have a lot of confidence, absolute confidence in what the buyers are trying to get done. They're trying to go to infinity, and on their way to infinity is going to be areas of supply, so we can be very clear about what their objectives are. What are the sellers trying to do? They're trying to go to zero. What is on the way down to zero? These areas of demand that we're establishing the way up. You know what I mean? So we always know very clearly, if we use this kind of methodology, what the short-term objectives are on their way to the longer-term objectives, zero and infinity. Does that make sense? So anyway, daily trend is bearish, lower highs and lower lows. Key lower high resistance is over here at 104.890. Anything like that's going to be good for another daily lower high. And again, these objective for the sellers is just to crack through this guy, crack through this guy. Okay? And I guess we'll cover, like, some of these Fang Man T names. Apple. You know, again, not that much damage, right? Like Apple, I'm going to try to just run through these Fang Man T names. I'm sorry, I should have checked what Lori covers in these videos. I should have done so, but it's too late. So Apple, it's fine, right? There's no change on Apple. The daily no change level is over here. If these sellers can't get back under, let's see here, 220.20, then they don't even negate the change of this breakout. And there's this very clear demand zone for these buyers to look to defend off of, right? Microsoft also just backtesting local daily demand zone. No big red flags right now. NVDA, same, right? You have this local daily demand zone. It held here, it held here. You can't love the fact that you didn't make a higher high here. Elevated selling volume is notable, but still, on the weekly time frame, there's no change without getting back under 97.40. So even if NVDA continued to drill down another 23%, which is totally normal, by the way, NVDA has done that a bunch of times. It's done like 50% plus retracements very often, right? This is probably 80 or so. That's like 70% retracement. This is a 60% retracement. This is probably like a 50. It's not unreasonable, you know? And the idea is, even if that were to be the case, like if we look back at, let's say, this retracement, there's still just a good amount of demand here. Like this move down, yeah, it negates this breakout, but if you can't find acceptance under this local demand, then it's really not that big of a deal. This was probably a higher time frame, higher low, like a 3-month higher low or something. Yeah, it was just this, you know? And why did it stop there? Because there was enough demand here to stop the selling, right? Because this is already a lot of work put in by the sellers before they reach this location. You know, the recipe for a good trade, the way that I see it at least, is extension and location. If you have extension to location, those are the two key components for any good R trade. Okay, at least the way that I do. So again, no really meaningful damage here. So those are our generals, right? Let's start for the fourth general is Amazon. These should be the top 4 holdings, you know. So you look at Amazon. How bad is Amazon? Again, not even backtesting this area of demand that was established yet. So these buyers don't even negate, the sellers don't even negate the change of this breakout until they can get back under 191.70. So there's probably a lot of chatter online right now, you know, a lot of fear in the market. Is this the top or whatever? I kind of doubt it. You know, is this a major top? I doubt it. Is it an intermediate top? It could be, but for now, there's not really that much sign of that. Like you just look at, you know, like there's so much doom and gloom out there. Like again, for all we know, there is more meaningful consolidation on the monthly time frame or whatever. But if it's going to be like a major cycle top, probably not, right? You don't have a lot of like IPOs going crazy, right? You don't have a lot of people saying it's never going to come down, right? You still have a lot of bears that are out there saying this is the top. You know, that's not usually how tops are marked. You know, you have a ton of money in money market funds, like trillions of dollars in money market funds. You have trillions of dollars in money market funds, right? So you have people who are, you know, sitting on the sidelines still, right? So what are they going to do? If you've been sitting on the sidelines with your money parked, getting like 5% interest or whatever, and you just watch this rip, you know, 5%, like this is probably 5% here. So from here to here, that's 5%. So imagine you're sitting out on the market, you know, your capital's parked in money market funds and you missed out on like this amount of rally. That would be not so good. You know what I mean? So you probably have a lot of folks who are looking to buy weekly higher lows, right? Who are looking to buy monthly higher lows, you know? So, you know, it's way too early to be calling tops in my opinion. The fear and greed index is probably right back to neutral, you know? So anyway, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So I appreciate you guys sharing some of your time and energy with me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And I believe Chart Guy Lord will be back on the regular schedule tomorrow. Did she do a video tomorrow? You know better than I do. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, if anything, and I hope to see y'all soon. Farewell.